Tom Hageland,
Here.
Ruth Nelson,
Here.
Bob Nystrom,
Here.
Jana Shogren,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. We'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a couple of announcements before we get into the meat of our meeting. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D-02, meetings conducted by interactive TV. Persons may monitor this meeting from a remote location by watching on YouTube Live. This meeting is being recorded. Access to the recording will be made available on the school district's website as soon as is reasonably possible. Director Boyles is online with us. He will be listening and participating in discussion. He will not be voting, so we will not have to do a roll call vote. The maximum seating capacity with 3 feet of social distance is being observed in this meeting. It's calculated at 23. This will be maintained. Tornstrom Auditorium is set up for extra seating and viewing. And then there is a mistake on this agenda here. It says face coverings are highly recommended, and as you all know, face coverings are now required for all individuals. Finally, I'd like to welcome Dr. Heidi Hahn, our Assistant Superintendent. She's going to be helping facilitate this meeting as Superintendent Larson is unavailable tonight.
Thank you.
Welcome. So we'll start with our meeting, approval of the agenda as amended.
So moved. Second.
First from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Blackglass. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And just to check, Director Boyles, can you hear us? Can we hear him?
It seems like he's frozen up right now.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no picture, just sound downstairs.
Okay, maybe we can work on that. We can go on. I know he wants to be able to take part in some of the later items. So see if we can get him on board. Okay. So we'll go on to recognitions in the meantime. And I'll turn that over to Dr. Hahn.
It's awesome. So it's been a great week back. So welcome back to, we had a fantastic opening day on Tuesday, welcoming back our students and our staff. Our open houses went very well as well. We also had our big kickoff with our staff last Thursday. We enjoyed that time together, and we had Superintendent Larson address the full staff. So great start. Very excited to be back in school. We've been giving away some above and beyond award winners, and we did the last one over at Garfield Elementary. They actually had a fire drill, so we practiced, and everybody was out on the playground to honor one of our staff there. And it was just really fun to see all the kids, and they're excited to be having PE and music and all the fun things that they missed out on last year.
Yeah, and each of the board members also was at an elementary school the first day of school, and I saw a lot of happy kids.
Backpacks bigger than some of the kiddos, that's
It
for
was,
sure.
yeah.
And lots of school supplies. They had fun buying their school supplies this year. We also want to give a special shout out and congratulations to our choral director at Brainerd High School, Mr. Brian Stubbs. He's been selected as the choral director of the year by the American Choral Directors Association of Minnesota. This is an extremely high honor in our choral directing world, and we're just very proud of him. He has a phenomenal choral program over at Brainerd High School.
He is. Congratulations to him.
Huge honor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next up is our Project 181 update. We're welcoming, it looks like Damian Williams and Scott Woodham are here tonight.
All right, good evening. Great to see everybody. We've had an exciting first week of school ourselves, and happy to see everybody back to school. And we got to see a lot of smiling faces on opening day, so that was great. That was great. This is our bond improvements update for September 13th, 2021. We'll start with the Barrett High School. Scott.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So Area 2, which is primarily the PAC and all those ancillary spaces. So we are waiting on some carpet to finish out some punch list items. But we are primarily closed out on the north side. Right now we're waiting on carpet and some rubber base coat. Area 6, 7, and 8, which are the FACS labs, the business lab, engineering, makerspace, and the wood shops. Those are all occupied. We had teachers in a couple weeks ago setting up. So that went really, really well. And we're just closing out some punch list items. Again, waiting on some materials to show up. Primarily a front facade to a commercial cooler and a couple of supports for some equipment in the wood shop. Area 9, which is our Ox Gym. We're continuing on rough-ins. We're hoping to start paint by Monday, and we are tentatively planning on installing floors October 6th. The only reason I say tentatively is we got to get those air handling units up and running in order to provide a controlled, environmentally controlled space prior to the wood floors going in. Area 10, they're setting the pool gutters right now, trench drains, and pool mechanical equipment's going in. Right now, we have 2 welders working. We're trying to get more in there. We had a material issue which prevented some of the gutters from showing up on time. We have them all now, and we're trying to get more welders in there to make sure that gutter installation keeps going as planned. Any questions on North Campus? No? Well, there's our greenhouse. Greenhouse update real quick. We cannot occupy the greenhouse right now. The AHJ, so the authority having jurisdiction, it was determined that initially we weren't going to put fire suppression in there, and then the state stepped in and said you guys got to have it. So we have to go back through plan review for that fire suppression system and get installed as soon as we make it through plan review. So that's what's holding up occupancy of the greenhouse. Other than that, the landscaping is done. Everything else is primarily done. We're just waiting on an electrical final and then the fire suppression. Lower level of the locker rooms, we are painting out right now. We're gonna be setting ceilings on some of those rooms that are finished starting this week. So that's going really, really well. And South Campus, Area A, so we were waiting on some door frames to arrive. We finally got them, so that's good news. We got door frames going in, finishing out the steel stud, and then we're going to continue with our rough-ins. So our door frames were holding up our electrical rough-ins. We were about a month and a half ahead of schedule prior to our door frame delay. Now we're tracking about 2 weeks ahead of schedule there, so still going very, very well. Area B, structural steel and framing continues, so you're going to start seeing that building being enclosed. All of our footings, foundation walls have been poured. Structural steel has been set. Right now we're just putting up exterior framing. Goal is to get that building weather tight by October 15th so we can get heat in there and keep sheetrock going. I'll start sheetrock, I should say. Area C, rough-in work continues. So we're setting mechanical HVAC rough-ins. We got framing up. We got our door frames now. So rough-ins with electrical is going to continue. Area E, we should be finishing our plumbing underground rough-ins tomorrow. They'll pour that in, start framing there. So that's going very well, I should say. And the main building utility work is nearing completion, so our storms all tied in. We're getting our light pole bases routed out there right now. It's up to grade. Everything's getting ready for tar. Our goal is to have base course down and all our curb and gutter in on the east side of the building before frost. So South Campus is going very, very well. Questions on South?
So right now, it's pretty much on track to be completed by?
Well, right now we're ahead of schedule for being substantially complete by July 1.
Okay.
If the trend continues, great. As we know, material and labor shortages have been an ongoing issue. Right now, we're able to keep the materials and the people on site to keep progress moving ahead. We did go from about a month and a half ahead to about 2 weeks over the course of about a month. So it's been a struggle, but the contracts are all on board. You know, everybody's working together, and it's just overall it's going. Can't say enough good things about it. It's going very well.
Perfect. Thanks, Scott. Garfield Elementary, we're roofing at the canopy has started. Metal panels at the canopy will start after roofing is complete, so we'll be getting the front of that building wrapped up here over the next few weeks. Brick is getting installed at the gym addition, and then the structural steel has been completed on the gym addition. Roofing has started this week. Landscaping is ongoing. As soon as the front end work is done at the entrance, then we're gonna get the landscaping wrapped up. And then mechanical, electrical rough-ins in the boiler room are ongoing. Gonna get the boiler room started here before the weather temps start to drop. Kitchen equipment is being installed, and then we're removing the cafeteria floor and getting that work taken care of. So, got a lot of pictures of Garfield here. This is at the front entrance. As you walk in, nice wood wall, display case. This is a staff lounge. One of the workrooms or office spaces. Hallway. That's it. Any questions on Garfield? I do know Garfield's kitchen is a little slower than the other two kitchens. Because we won't have a space with the cafeteria to serve, I think they are delaying the kitchen 1 week. So I think the 22nd is a scheduled date for that review of that kitchen. So the other kitchens are on track for this week, getting their finals. So
With the floor you're working on, what type of floor are you putting in again?
the same floor that was in there before.
Okay.
So it'll be the same wood floor.
Has Kyle had a chance to look into those new front steps we talked about last?
I believe they're meeting tomorrow. Tim Ramroth was in our office today, and
Okay.
they're going to be reviewing that tomorrow to double check those rise and runs.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. Lowell Elementary, construction substantially complete. The building is occupied. The design team created and issued the punch list. Kitchen equipment was installed and connected. The inspection is scheduled for Wednesday of this week. And then the boiler room is, we're getting that up and running before the temps get cold. So again, we have a lot of pictures here to show. That's the front entrance. I'm sure many of you have seen that. Signage is coming at the end of the month, so we'll get the Brainerd B on the tower.
And it'll say Lowell somewhere too, right?
Correct.
Before you click off that, if we could, something like that at Garfield on the steps instead of.
Instead of the sharp steps.
Yeah, I mean, let's just not come back with the more standard step and rise right at the end, but
You have to arm wrestle with Reed on that.
I'd be happy to. Where is he?
This is the front entry as you come into Lowell. The secure entrance, the fishbowl as we call it. This is looking down the hallway, going down, actually that's the front entrance that we see at the far way. We're at the locker bay looking to the south. One of the neat features is we got to keep that existing wall and add a little architectural feature to that hallway.
That's very neat.
Yeah.
Love that.
This is the workroom. Is there any questions on Lowell? Okay, Todd is very enthusiastic about his space. Yeah, he's extremely happy. So, which is good. Riverside Elementary, construction was substantially complete and the building is occupied. The design team developed and issued the punch list. Main entry doors are scheduled to be installed this week. They were held up by COVID, material shortage again. So we'll get those. We have a plan in place with Sheila to get those installed, so, and make sure students are safe. Kitchen equipment was installed and will be inspected again on Wednesday of this week. And then we're working on the boiler room. And we have some pictures to show. The gym space, I guess it's a multi-purpose room. It's not a full-size gym, but it's a very nice space. This is in the cafeteria. You can see the acoustic banners up top. A lot of nice natural light into that space. This is in the entryway. So the cafeteria is to your left. This is looking down the hall. Out those doors that you see is the playground area. Goes out to the playground area. The wall graphic is coming in here in the next week or two, and it'll be installed on the right-hand side of that wall. So that'll be our graphic wall, which would be cool. That's kind of a view into the staff lounge, kind of give you an idea. There are doors that were also back ordered for the staff lounge, so there'll be aluminum storefronts that you'll be able to see into that space installed as well. That is the Riverside workroom. And that is all. Any questions on Riverside? Okay. Brayard Learning Center, working on the DD drawings. They're completed. Right now, just wrapping up the estimate, getting ready to present that at the next POT meeting. Things are going very well. Everything's on track with that project. Wesby, the design team is, we're doing weekly coordination meetings every week. We're working through schematic design, and we're also working on the estimate. That's coming along. We are working through some challenges with the gym space and some of the structural work that would take place to try to make the back, the front, to have that secure entrance and have that welcome center on the south side of the building. So we're working through some of those issues, trying to see what can be done there. But it's coming along. We got some good ideas in place. We'll be reviewing those at the POT as well. That's everything. I will tell you that we actually experienced the hardest summer as a company on record. A lot of our schools had lots of challenges, and believe it or not, our schools were one of the better performers out of all the projects in our company. So we've seen the labor shortages, the material shortages we've talked about. It was just it was definitely the hardest one we've ever experienced. So we look forward to the future and having much more normal summers.
And I would have to give credit to our local labor force for keeping us on track as well as we did. Being able to have a lot of local people, contractors and vendors.
You need to thank Scott, because Scott actually lost a lot of his labor force to shore up the last 3 weeks to get ready for school. Okay. His projects didn't have the manpower he probably would like to have seen, but it's a team effort, so I just reminded Scott of that a lot, and promised I'd buy him lunch and maybe a couple of adult cocktails, and anyway, but the good news is now we'll be able to really key in on South Campus and get the high school wrapped up. So,
all right, trying again to see if you guys can hear me.
Oh yeah. Hey, yes. Kevin.
Hello,
wonderful.
Kevin.
Can you hear us?
Well, yep, I can hear perfectly. Thank you. And I want to, Ruth, if it's okay, I'd like to echo your sentiments. Damien was kind enough to show me around Garfield, Lowell, and Riverside on the Saturday before school started, and to see the people from all of our local contractors busting their humps along with our school staff to get those buildings ready for the kids was really, really something to see. And I'm so grateful we have such great people in our community that step up and help.
Yes, and thank you for adding the staff, because I know they took their Labor Day weekend and worked it. So thank you to all of the staff that worked extra hard to get the schools ready too.
They did. There was lots of staff.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday in our buildings.
Yeah. When we all work together, we get things done.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any other questions?
Thanks, you guys.
Okay. Okay, then, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're going to move on to public input at this time, and I want to say a few things before we start. Do you know how many
Anne Marie has us this evening.
Yeah.
15? Okay, so those of you that are planning to address an issue during the public comment portion of tonight's meeting, we welcome your comments. Please be reminded that we must comply with Board Policy 206, and the following limitations will apply. The school board will enforce a 3-minute limit on each person speaking. And especially with 15 people speaking, we need to enforce that amount of time. So you have time ahead of time to prepare your comments and make sure they fit in that limit. During the public comment session, complaints or allegations against students or any employees or board members may not be discussed due to data privacy. Complaints or allegations must be submitted in writing to Superintendent Larson. So we don't want to hear any complaints on specific people tonight or ever. Please be advised there will be no verbal interaction or question or answer with the Board of Education or with any of administration. And with that, you can call the first person, and I don't know who's keeping track of the time.
Actually, I'm gonna open it up with a letter to read, then I will read it for you. It is from a staff person who asked that this letter be read as part of public comments. Mara Williams, letter to her principal. Sitting with you reminds me of the first day I sat with you with only dreams to one day be a part of the Lowell Brainerd team. This has been a dream I had carried for many years, and the day it became a reality was overwhelmingly joyful. The work I have been privileged to provide within these walls has been life-changing. I am forever grateful for it. Today I am overwhelmed, not with joy, but with a heavy heart. I understand you, and I do not see eye to eye on the challenges we face today. However, we still share the same values that brought us together just 5 years ago. We want to do what is best for kids. However, we differ on what this looks like. You know the look in students' eyes, the one that tells you they trust you. They trust you to make decisions that are best for them and to teach them how to best care for themselves and others. I cannot deceive my students who have put their trust in me by telling them they are unsafe without a cotton mask over their face, and that is dangerous to be less than 3 feet from others. I cannot teach them they cannot share with one another, hold someone's hand, or offer a hug of comfort for a friend who is sad. In fact, these values are the opposite of why I chose this profession. You were once impressed by a compliment in a recommendation letter stating, I carry myself with the highest integrity. This part of me still runs deep, deeper today than ever before. God has placed this conflict in my heart for a reason, and I cannot ignore his voice telling me these mandated environments are not the place to carry out this work. I don't expect you to agree, but I ask for your empathy to understand just how difficult this situation is for someone who holds my values. As for my steps in the days ahead, I ask for your guidance. I would love to be here teaching here in an environment that gives individuals the right to use their own critical thinking, make their own choice, or make their own decisions about health, and tolerate those who may come to different conclusions. These are the foundations in which I can be proud to stand behind. We are taking these out of our education. What message are we sending to our children? And that's the end of the letter. All right. So I'm just going to call your name in the order I received these. Macy Spear, if you'd like to step forward.
Hello everyone, my name is Macy, and I would like to take this time to speak not only to the school board, but to Brainerd parents who might be listening as well. I hope you will hear what I have to say. This year is my senior year. So far, I have had one full year of high school. I feel extremely sad to have missed out on countless days of in-person learning, social interaction, school dances, marching band, football games, and basically every part of a normal high school experience. Something I've learned from this is that I would do just about anything to spend as much time as I can in school. If that includes wearing a mask, I will do it without question. As we all know, a mask is a small piece of cloth that is worn on your face. It's very simple. It is not sitting behind a computer on a Google Meet for hours every day. And it is not losing valuable connections with the people I love. A mask is not only incredibly easy to wear, but it keeps me and everyone around me safe. The concept and science of wearing a mask could not be simpler. Let's stop fighting with our own community. We are all in this together and will have better results if we act as a team. And finally, to the school board, thank you. You have no idea how much it means that you are willing to take hate so you can keep us safe and healthy every day. Coming from a student, most of us are wearing our masks all day, every day, and we will continue to do so. Keep up what you're doing and always know that you're appreciated by those you made this decision for. Thank you.
Next, I have Jean Gecker.
Hello, I'm Gene Gecker, and I graduated from Washington in 1958, so nobody believes me anymore when I say I'm 39. But I had just a point or two that I wanted to make. I have another meeting I gotta get to also, but naturally, I can't say what I really think about these masks, but I'm not happy with it. I'll leave it at that. That was one of my points. And I didn't realize that you had required that until I came up to the door and I had to go back to the car and get a mask. I had a question, and I've never gotten a straight answer on anything from this board. So I don't know that I will now either. But I was talking to a senior last week, and we were talking about the Constitution, and he said that his instructor, he'd asked him about it, and he was told that they didn't allow it, a discussion on it. And it could have been just at class or something, but I asked him also, I said, well, have you ever had anything about the Constitution? And he said, not that he could remember. And I'm concerned that the Constitution is one of the first things that they should be taught. If the kids were given the information in our Constitution, we probably would have 90% less problems today. So I'm concerned about that, and I wanted to bring that up. The gal before me mentioned the teachers, and as I recall, in my day, the teachers were superb. I can't really think of a bad teacher. Thank you. But today I don't know how they are. It's been too long, but I thank you.
Next speaker I have is Deb Kern.
I'm actually more protected than most. I got 2 masks on. Many of you went to the big event here a couple years ago, and at the big event, it was all about, this is so hard to pull a mask up though. At the big event, it was all about masquerade and transparency and being open. And, you know, the transparency at the last closed meeting, it kind of was disingenuous at best. The problem that, I'm just gonna pull this down so I can, yeah, you can't see my mouth anyway. Disingenuous at best. The last board meeting, they were given all these statistics by different leaders in the district, and but they left some conveniently out. None of them dealt with the suicide rates that are going through the roof, the mental health issues that are going through the roof, the medical issues that are happening because people are masking. I've talked to so many people. I got 8 sisters and 5 brothers, and I got 110 nieces and nephews. Many of them are in the healthcare field, and they would all tell you the same thing. Wearing that mask causes breathing problems. Eventually, it's going to cause it.
revolving out of the mask wearing. This lack of transparency is just, I think it's disingenuous not to give the whole picture of what's going on in the state and the county. All these statistics were also available from the same places that they got the one-sided conversation, the one-sided statistics that they had at the closed meeting. We do know that fully vaccinated people can get the COVID, and it can kill them. COVID is a real thing, not saying it's not real, but people can get it even after getting the vaccination with a mask, even if they're wearing the mask. And so we just know that for a fact. I mean, that's a fact. So what's the purpose of the mask other than control? I'm just really embarrassed by the partial information that the board received and then the decision that they made based on that partial information, because there is more information that is available. You know, as far as transparency, we're looking at the last meeting that we could speak, I asked about Timothy Lensmeyer and him being hired as a consultant for Independent School District 181 as a equity liaison consultant, and how much he was getting paid. I got two different answers from two different board members as far as in one in person, one on a phone call. I'm still wondering, what is the deal with Timothy Lensmeyer? I'm very proud of the group. There's a group called the Brainerd Family Union. They're seeing that St. Francis is filled up, Lake Region's filled up, and they can't work with the school board. They decided to take on their own little school, an academy that they're starting for the children. And I'm very proud of them for doing that, because at least they tried to work with the school district. I'm proud of them for doing that, instead of just running off and doing it without at least trying.
Thank you,
So
Doug.
with that, just
Your time is up.
yeah.
Thank you.
Next, I have Hilary Johnson.
Hi, my name is Hilary Johnson. I am, most importantly, a parent to two boys. One goes to Nisswa Elementary School, and now I have one at Forest View. I am here to say thank you. I think it's time. I've been watching online, everyone in this building, all the schools. I thank you. And I know you all are human. You did not sign up for this. Good Lord, I don't think anyone would sign up for this. And I appreciate you all listening to the many voices. And I have the pleasure of watching at home, and I can pause these board member meetings and walk away, and you have to sit here. And I appreciate each and every one of you. And I applaud that you're listening to both sides. Both sides are very passionate, and it's absurd that we have to talk about sides. But my kids are in school, and I'm grateful. And I know my kids aren't the only kids in this district, and we live in a large district. It is not a small little clump of people, and we have to think about that as a district, and you are. And you are listening to the many voices. The voices that want to be loud right now, you are listening. The voices that want to be soft right now, you are listening. And I appreciate everyone in the district for working above and beyond what they are supposed to be doing right now. And I have seen the staff at Nisswa School go above and beyond through the last 2 years. And I applaud them, and I appreciate them. And thank you for sitting here when sometimes it felt like a football event. But you listened, and you stayed, and you listened. And I understand it's not fun, but I applaud you for listening to both sides, and I applaud you to continue to listen to the phone calls and your emails being plastered everywhere. And I know my child is not the only child in this district, and my voice isn't the only one. And if I'm loud or soft, it doesn't make it right.
30 seconds.
And to think that it does is self-centered. So thank you, because you guys are human, and I applaud everyone in this district. and I appreciate the 3 minutes because my voice is not the only voice. Thank you.
Next, I have Brian Rizarski. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
I'd like to just do a little discussion on masks. First of all, I do not like talking in front of people. I'm doing it for our kids. I brought a monitor. It's a O2. It's an atmosphere O2 sensor. It measures your oxygen, and I'd like to do a test for everyone here. I'm going to turn it on right now. Just counting down from 10. Regular oxygen is 21. Anything under 19.5 is unsafe in OSHA standards. You should, for confined space or anything, you should get out immediately. Right now we're at 21. Okay? I'll breathe. First I'll breathe without a mask. And I'm at 20. 20.1. And I'll put the mask on. It's beeping. It's at 18.5. 18.5, and then you can do it this way too. If someone else wants to come closer, they can see the numbers for themselves. $18.5, 18.8. So it's as that's showing, it's, you know, it's not safe. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's just, I don't think anyone likes wearing masks, but it's they're not safe for, you know, for science. I just showed you right there that's all I wanted to show.
Next speaker I have is Amy Bogart.
I wasn't ready because I thought it was 15th. I'm Amy Bogart. I was here before. If I sound pointed, it's not because of anything. I'm glad that you're all here, and I thank you for everything that you're putting up with. It's just that I have a lot I want to say, a lot of questions, mostly because I want to be involved in the conversation. So I'm just going to get to it. This virus is never going away, and as such, what is the threshold for no longer requiring a COVID matrix? Will this be an every year thing? Is it a hospitalization thing? Is it a specific mortality rate? Is it a percentage of community that takes the vaccine? What do we need to let our children be normal again? I see that you changed the requirement to mandate masking at the high school to a higher case rate. Is that due to the vaccine availability at those ages? If so, children 12 and over can be vaccinated, so then 7th and 8th graders should also fall into that, and I'm wondering if that's something we can change as well. Sorry, it's sucking into my mouth. Even after stating that distance learning was not going to happen this year, it's still in the plan, specifically under the enforcement in section C of what you're going to be approving tonight, as the reason for the reason for this in-service later this month. So what's the plan to help the students that struggled last year due to COVID and our mitigation efforts? I received an email from one of the board members that said that my child's poor education last year was an outlier. But for example, in 7th grade, the district handed out an increased 625 percentage increase of 625% more Fs than the previous year, and 6th grade was 904%. My child is not an outlier. Now that you've had the COVID plan in place, what is our plan for our social, emotional, mental health, as well as education because of the COVID mitigation? And is that something we can see in writing? Moving on, in the last 13 months, you guys have done 2 equity letters, but I'm kind of disappointed because I haven't been able to see very many updates, and it's been pretty sparse. I'm wondering if there's any of the goals that are measurable, and if that's something that we can see, if we can see any of those results so far. Also, I'm curious what kind of authority this committee is going to have, if they're going to have to present proposals to the board for their results, or if that's something that's going to go straight to the district. And then also, I'm curious about what kind of things have been implemented so far with that, if there's anything that's gone through, because the board's been meeting for a year now. So if there's anything that we can have access to that's been already implemented and how that will change in the classroom. Mostly because in that letter, we talked about having difficult conversations. And I'm a parent, and my job is to educate my kids. And if I contract the school district to do part of that, I need to be able to know what's being taught to them so that I can be a part of those conversations. And the last thing I want to say, hopefully quickly, is that recently, and I've been aware of this for a while, we only have 3 counselors in our middle school. That there's like 700 students, or it's like a 700-to-1 ratio, student to counselors, which is a crazy amount. And I know many, many families that have struggled with this and communication and things. And so I'm just wondering if that's something that the board is looking at, or the district. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Gail Breckenridge?
My name is Gail Breckenridge. I do not have a student in the school. I'm a resident of Brainerd, and actually was going to bring in a monitor tonight and didn't. I'm an environmental health and safety person, so I deal with confined space and oxygen levels and multiple gases and stuff on a daily basis. And we have done the same thing at work using our monitors. Our guys with their masks on have problems working. Even some of our people, we use N95 masks, and some of the issues with oxygen levels and them having to evacuate facilities because they are working in their masks when it's allowed, a cloth mask, you know, depending on what they're doing. If they're washing a tank, there's no other hazards. We use Dawn dish soap, they wear a cloth mask, which leads to breathing issues. We went as far as having to put them in air helmets just to make them comfortable to do the level of production we need out of them, because social distancing of 6 feet is not always available. So I am not in agreement of wearing the mask. Lower oxygen levels do impact concentration. They do impact irritability for our kids, so, and other health issues. So I just wanted to make that comment. I am not in agreement with the masks. They don't work. They're filtering face pieces. They're not barriers. The microns, if you do the research, most filtering face pieces, even an N95 respirator, will only take away 95% of a 0.3 micron. COVID is a lot less. So this is a control issue, is all it is.
My next speaker is Shelly Losting.
Hi, my name is Shelly. I'm Losting, and I just kind of wanted to go over the low oxygen. I also had the pleasure of going to school with Gail too. And so, speaking about the low level of oxygen, it causes a loss of coordination, weakness, nausea, fainting, and especially when your oxygen level is at 15% to 19%, it affects your coordination. And unfortunately, when we're at 10% and 12% level of oxygen, your respiration increase, your lips turn blue, and judgment is impaired. But the problem is we're wearing that mask. You can't tell if a child's lips are turning blue. So I kind of wanted to emphasize about the lack of low level of oxygen. And it also makes the child very hyper, and they can't concentrate. And I think it's best that our children be in a school environment where they can have their full attention on what they're learning. So that's pretty much what all I have to say is, and even though I work a full-time, I have to wear this mask. And I can tell you, after getting close to my seventh hour of work, I will start tripping over my feet. Why? Because of lack of oxygen. So I think we need to kind of do a little bit research, and we need to have more people bring in those oxygen monitors. And another thing, what are we doing with our children that are complaining about headache? How are you handling this? Yes, that is my concern. Do you have a oxygen meter for these children that are complaining about headaches? So I guess pretty much that's what all I have to say.
My next speaker is Amanda Johnson. I can pass, okay. Madison?
I didn't put anything on my card.
Oh, you don't want to speak? No. Okay. And I have another Amanda. Did you want to speak? Okay. What's your last name, Amanda?
Orline.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Amanda Orline, and I run the Brainerd Parents Union. I just have one question. How can you email parents telling them to deem their children mentally ill to get an exemption for the masks? And what are you guys doing to prevent this? That is ridiculous.
Okay, my next speaker is Scott Milhot.
Yeah. Surprisingly, most people don't. Hi, Scott Milhot, child in Riverside. As you can tell, most parents do not agree with the mask mandate. Once again, the mandate is just a mandate. It's nothing. It's not a law. Nobody can be told what to do, what not to do. Simple, you guys are breaching our constitutional rights. Wearing this mask is doing absolutely nothing. It's been proven that painters wear a certain mask, welders wear a certain mask, miners wear a certain mask to filter out certain toxins. We have the deadliest virus, and we wear this. This is no different than taking my underwear off and putting it on my head. Really? Like what are we doing? Is it fun to walk around town looking like a damn clown? Sorry, excuse my language. No. Our children are not concentrating in school. Their grades are going down. Distance learning, even in-school learning with the masks. And speaking about school, okay, they're not learning about the constitutional. Okay, cool, that's awesome. But now they're implementing words your way. Last time I checked, the dictionary is a dictionary, correct? The words are spelled one way. That is spelled T-H-A-T, not T-H-T. No, it doesn't matter how you want to spell it. You should be corrected and be like, okay, nice try. This is the way it's spelled. The kids are not corrected on their misspelled words. So what is this words your way? And that is a block of learning? No, they're not learning at all. Nobody's correcting their words. So what are we actually trying to teach our children nowadays? Nothing? Because that's basically what I got so far. Most of the kids in 2nd and 3rd grade don't even know how to tell time. Some of the kids barely even know how to do addition and subtraction.
30 seconds.
And I honestly feel sorry for them. I have volunteered at the school and helped. It is absurd, and this needs to stop. Plain and simple. Thanks for your time.
Eli Borg is our next speaker.
I think I get to take my mask off, right? For speaking?
When you're speaking, you can, yes.
I'm an 8th grader at the middle school. I've been on student council as 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Well, not yet, we haven't. But I think I probably shouldn't be here speaking to you. I feel like, why should I be telling you that I don't want to wear a mask? Don't you feel like, have you asked the kids what they wanted to do? You know, I feel like we haven't been asked, like, we haven't been treated fairly by you 6 members, is it, of the school board? Have you come into classrooms and have seen how kids don't ask questions to their teachers because they can't see their faces, or the teachers can't see their faces? Even me, I've been raised with Christian values to spread the light, spread gospel to people. And somebody's feeling down, I smile to them. Now, I can't smile to anybody. So what can kids do now to raise other kids' spirit? Huh? What can we do? During school, all we get, they don't care how our grades are. Some teachers, they're just pull up your mask, do this, pull up your mask, do that. I can't breathe, I have asthma, and I pull it down for a second, I need some fresh air. That's what humans need, oxygen to live. Get yelled at. See you again, you're gonna go to the administration's office. Well, if you're not gonna let us take our masks off, can you send us outside for 15 minutes for mask breaks? This is ridiculous. I don't understand. I really don't. Even like September 11th, y'all post on Facebook, we'll never forget. I haven't even learned anything about that this year. Nothing, it's the truth. I've heard nothing about 9/11. Don't you think that's an important part of our life as an American? To learn what that people have done going into that building to sacrifice their life? So as a student, I feel like we are not being represented. And I hope that you will change the mask mandate. If kids want to wear them, they sure can. But if kids don't, shouldn't we have the choice? Like home, they give us homework. I don't want to wear this at school.
That's all that I have tonight.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll go on to the rest of our meeting. And we're going to start with our school board discussion regarding time, place, and manner guidelines for school board meetings and public comment. So everyone has in front of them, I think, or some thoughts about it, and I know we've all responded a lot to these thoughts, but I thought we'd just take some time and go through what we like and what we don't like. So if anyone wants to start on any conversation on particular things. And Kevin, are you still on and you can hear?
Yes, I am on and I can hear. Thanks,
Okay.
Ruth.
Wonderful. So does everyone have it? Okay, so I think we want to get down to maybe the written request to speak. I think the welcome and the purpose. Does anyone have any concerns about that?
Well, yes.
Okay.
I did send in a number of, comments, and I haven't kind of cross-referenced over to see kind of where things are, but
the time frame, probably, the time limit.
well, so, I got to thinking about, if you look at the written request to speak, what the intent or the purpose or reason why we need an individual's home address, whether they have a child attending school in our district, whether they're employed by the district. And, you know, I'm just wondering what the value is for that. Why does that matter?
Tom, I read the same thing. And what I would say is my only concern that made me kind of, you know, consider the idea of it is that I guess in a perfect world, we would be validating that at least the majority or the prioritized people that are speaking to the board at the board meetings are in fact district residents, as opposed to just random people that might come here from Crosby or other towns. You know, so I just offer that up as an explanation. I don't know that I disagree with your stance.
Yeah, I do think it's important to know if they're a resident of our school district or not.
So that's the primary reason?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
So, okay, and so would it be fair just to ask that question if they are or not?
So
And
just
if,
the individual's name. We usually also like to have their phone number so we can get back to them, which I think is important when we need to.
or is that something that if they want us to get back to them,
Yeah.
leave us your contact?
That could be optional. And then just have it, rather than the home address, just have resident of the district is that what you're thinking?
Well, and then if that's the case, if they come and say that, no, I'm not a resident of the district.
They can still speak, I think our main goal is to listen to our residents. They might have expertise.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was thinking too, because at first I thought kind of the same thing. Well, do we want to hear just those from our district? But then, you know, to some degree, does it matter? And I somewhat wonder if we're, I don't want to say overreacting to this, but just in lieu of the last few months. But in my 12 years, we've had very few public comment, and I just wonder maybe not the intent, but the purpose behind all of it.
Yeah, I think we have had very few public comments, but I think we will have more in the future.
And we might, yeah, and which is fine. I'm all in favor of, you know, addressing and updating. But I got to thinking about what's the value, what's the purpose behind it. I certainly don't need to know whether they're a district employee. In fact, I almost wonder if we can even ask that question.
I think this was looked over by legal counsel, so I think we can. I don't know, do you know what the purpose of that would be for?
I think it's just because you're getting public input, so you want to understand where that input's coming from. So on the current input right now, they list the name, they do list contact information, and then they list the reason why they're coming to comment. So that's been common practice in place. So right now, because you do not get to respond, so it's having some of that background information. So if you do choose to respond, then you have accurate information to respond.
Well, we can.
Yeah, and I again, where I would go with this is that I'm not really concerned about outside of district people coming and speaking to the board. You know, in a perfect world, eventually we're going to get ideas and, you know, from people from the community or from surrounding communities, and I don't want to quash that. I do think that when people do want to speak, though, like if you write a letter to the paper, a letter to the editor, all they require is your town that you live in. So it would be nice when somebody comes up to speak to us to know what town they live in. I don't need their address, but the idea that that would enable us to know whether they're in our area or out of anywhere. So it puts some context around their comments. I don't think we would use it as a mechanism to keep them from doing public comment.
No, yeah, I do not want to limit anyone that wants to come and talk as long as they're respectful. So I would agree with that.
And I also apologize. I can't see you guys because of the way the cameras are set up. So I invariably end up talking over somebody. So please forgive me.
And I think what the attorney was asked to do, or what the attorney gave you, is what standard practice across the majority of districts. So.
Okay.
I think context is important. If we're truly wanting to hear from the community, that a certain amount of context is important. If not just what they're saying, but where they're from, the demographics are always important.
So if they're residents of our district or not? Would that be specific
Yeah.
enough?
Yeah, I don't know, the school district piece, I mean, I guess if they wanted to share it, it could provide some good context, but I could see both sides of that where, you know, a person might be seen as a ISD 181 Bobo or supporter, unabashed supporter
Oh, as
of what
far as
we're
the
doing because
employed
they're an
by.
employee or, but also I wouldn't want to squash a person from wanting to speak because they're an employee as well, so.
And I think we could have, you know, I think it's good to have their phone number if they want us to reach to them, but we could maybe put at the bottom of the thing, you know, optional, and if you don't, you won't get a response.
Yeah, that's what I guess I was thinking more of, I mean, if they certainly want to provide it so that we can respond, you know, makes sense to me. I was also concerned about, unless that got dropped, do they have to give this prior to 3 o'clock?
Yeah, and there's one thing, before we go further down, I just noted the one thing that I do want to change is somewhere up. The board typically sets aside up to 30 minutes for public comment from community members. And I don't think we want to limit the time because it's the only time they are available to talk. And we have the 3-minute limit already, so the only concern I would have is if we have a lot of people and it goes really long, would we want to get some of our work done for the other people presenting before, you know, so like maybe the first hour of the meeting, and if we have to have more comment, that's just a suggestion. I'm open to thoughts on that. We could finish it up at the end of the meeting or something like that. Hopefully it won't go longer than an hour ever, but I think it did 2 weeks or a month ago.
It's gone a couple times.
So I don't know what thoughts on that, just have it all up front, 3-minute limit, go until it's done, or limit it to an hour and add more later if needed.
Well, I think oftentimes individuals are wanting to provide their input in light of what we might be discussing.
That's a good point.
So it's probably best to hear that on the front end.
Okay.
Yeah, outstanding point. And Ruth, I agree with you. I'm 100% opposed to limiting the amount of time. If people take the time to come sit in front of the board and take their 3 minutes, we are obligated to listen.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think, however, and tonight it worked well, but I think we have to absolutely stick to the 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people need to respect that limit, and we need to stop it because we need to keep the meeting moving. And
I would like to thank those of you that are still present that you followed the rules of engagement that we have here tonight. So thank you very much for doing that. It went well.
And then we kind of jumped right to the written request. I'm curious about the part, this would be a departure for us. The public comment period would not be recorded or live streamed.
Oh.
That's different than what we're doing right now. So I just want to make sure we're calling attention to that. Is that our intention?
What paragraph is that under?
It's the end of the purpose paragraph. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I just call it out as a difference right now. And then if we're changing that, we should probably have a little bit of discussion about that and why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't understanding the reason behind that either.
Again, I apologize. I'm talking a lot, but I disagree with that. I think that the public has a right to see what the other members of the public are presenting or saying to the board real time when it's being streamed.
Yeah, I would agree.
I agree. I don't know why we would want to shield people from that or unintentionally shield them from that.
Okay.
Well, I can think of 50 reasons that are convenient for me, but they're not in line with our mission and our vision of transparency.
Right. Okay, I think we're all in agreement to not have that. So no time limit and we will record it and live stream it, be part of the board meeting. And then, then as we go to the written request to speak, do we want the written request to speak before the public comment period to be by a certain time? Was that in here still?
No, it looks like that got dropped.
Okay. Okay, so we're okay with they need to fill this out before the public comment period begins. or before the school board meeting begins, because no, it's okay to go up until
I was gonna say, last meetings, you've taken them throughout. I mean,
Okay.
we haven't accepted any more after the public comment period ends, but we've gathered them throughout.
Okay. So it's gonna have the individual's name, that whether the individual is a district resident or not? Are we okay with that?
Town of residence, I like the idea of just town of residence for context.
Yeah, except for like, I live in East Gull Lake and some go to Pillager and some go to Brainerd,
So
so,
can you put, I mean, you could do a checkbox, resident of ISD 181,
okay.
student of, I mean.
Yeah, that would be good.
Just whether your students here or
And then
not.
town.
here. Yep.
Okay. Whether the individual has a child attending school in the district? Do we want that? I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I think the context helps, but I think it also is nice, you know, to Macy was here to speak tonight as a student. I think it's very helpful to know if the person was a student, a parent, or an employee.
Yeah, and I like
Maybe
the
there's just a
idea.
checkbox there that
Or
says
a student.
whatever, if there's things you want to know.
Student, parent, community member, kind of a checkbox?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as long as it's
maybe?
optional, if somebody wants to leave that blank, we should let them leave it blank though.
Sure.
Okay.
And then that we might as well just have a checkbox for whether or not you're an employee of the district, if we're keeping that.
Sure, that, yeah.
You know, it's easy to just tick, tick, tick.
Not sure though, I'm not sure what that would really serve the employee. I don't know if I would need that.
Speaks to the
That one I'm a
context and
little,
their perspective. It speaks to their perspective that they have.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
same as whether they're a parent or not, if it doesn't matter whether they're a parent. You know what I mean? If
Assuming
we-
that's
we
the
shouldn't be asking
perspective
any
they
of
wanna
this if we don't wanna
project,
know the
right?
context of it.
Right, that's true.
But then again, if it's a parent who also happens to work for the district, maybe they only want to speak to us as a parent, and by adding the extra context, maybe they don't want to add that context. So again, if it's optional, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think our perspective comes from the different places we come from, though. You know, I don't know that we're asking, what are you speaking to us as tonight? We're asking to know, basically, what is your relationship to this situation, I guess?
I don't know, to me, this whole thing is, we welcome the public comment, let's listen to what they have to say. If we're gonna repeat, after 10 or so, let's try to tamper that down, but it's our only time to speak. I could care less where they're from, where they're employed. I'd rather listen to what they have to say than you gotta fit within the square box.
No, you don't have to fit in within any box, anyone can come.
Well,
That's
but
just
if we
their
say
card
you
they're filling
must,
out.
you must do this, you must do that,
There's no must.
well, I'm pretty sure.
We're asking them to give us that
The
information if
written
they choose to.
request must state individual's name, individual's home address.
Well, I think we could craft that then. What I'm hearing is, I think maybe then the card does need to say that what is required information and what is optional
Sure.
information.
What do we do with those cards afterwards? Where are they filed? What?
They're along with the board packet.
I keep them until the minutes have been approved.
Then what?
Hmm?
Then what?
I discard them.
So it goes back when we've had so many, what's been nice is we can go back and look at, oh, this was so-and-so, they made this comment, this was their question, this was their concern.
Sure, it's
So
a
in the minutes,
follow-up.
that's reflective. And really, it's a follow-up. If you have somebody who just wants to speak, that's where you can leave it optional. But I think the original intent from public comment was to hear that comment and that input, and then give you an opportunity as a board member to respond. Okay, now these cards haven't changed for, how many years we had the same card?
Oh, 10.
And I think how accessible you are now between email and everything else, there's a difference in that too. But I think that's been some of the clarifying, especially through the last point. I've spent hours with Janet listening and re-listening and making sure we go back and notify and have the right person saying the right thing.
And I'm assuming this will, oh, sorry, Charles.
Oh, you go ahead.
This will come back in front of us with these changes, I would imagine, right? Tonight, we're discussing it and we could.
Right.
It's easier if we implement it on
We have
here.
a special board meeting where we can discuss it, and if we can finalize it, then it'll be ready for our next public comment period. And if we can't, then we'll just proceed. So, keep working on it. So
So
this,
we would be able to revisit this, say, a year down the road if we asked about the school district affiliation or if they're employees, and if we decided we wanted it a year later or didn't want it, is that similar as other policies? We'll revisit
This
it?
isn't actually a policy, it's just our process, so it won't be a
So it
policy.
won't be visited, but we could change it if we wanted, or we could tweak it if we
Right.
want. Okay. That's what I'd like,
Yeah.
is to,
Yeah.
if we find something that just doesn't work,
Mhm.
or something we'd like to add, then we add it.
And then I think the second bullet point can go away. Because we're gonna listen to all the people.
Do we not have a public comment policy though? We don't.
Yeah, policy 202, isn't it?
Guidance. I know we have a procedure. But for clarification, what I hear you asking is to create checkboxes, and checkboxes are optional, just so I get my.
Yep.
Yep.
But I would think that we're not gonna have a separate document that we're gonna, we do have a policy then, did I hear you say?
I think we have.
206 is public participation in school board meetings, complaints about persons.
So I would think that we would incorporate it, that's what we're looking to update, right? Not
Yeah.
have another
Well, this is-
separate document?
Yeah, it can be. It's specific to complaints about persons at school board meetings and data privacy. So we're looking then, if you're gonna accept, typically you don't put a process in the policy, but you could expand on that. But this policy is written specific to that issue. When you read that statement, this policy addresses the complaint piece.
We can just put in the policy, you know, to look at the guidelines for more information or something. Okay, must be recognized, or whoever the school board chair is will recognize one speaker at a time.
Yeah, that one's important.
Time limit is 3 minutes. Cumulative presentations, I mean, it's just, we discourage it, but it can happen. And we've said that before in past meetings, that, you know, try not to repeat something that the person beforehand has. Prohibitive conduct. Anything in there?
Ruth, is that section long? Is that something you can read? I don't have the document.
It is kind of long.
Okay,
It's a-
don't worry about it then. I'll address anything other people have issues with.
Okay.
I can send you a picture of it, Kevin.
And this, a lot of the bullets align with the policy, because this talks about complaint directed at individuals. So there is a lot of overlap with these bullet points that could be tied back to policy 206.
So there's a couple of new things at the end that we might want to just make sure everyone understands. Holding up a sign or displaying banners, regardless of the content of the sign or banner. We've had that happen recently. And it does make it more of a circus. People do that. And then cheering, booing, vocalizing approval or disapproval. And we had that happen tonight, clapping.
And commenting, I have to say, I think it's important for people to realize that while public comment is allowed and we welcome it, it is an individual addressing the board, and we are having a meeting. And just because it's a public meeting, you know, I just think, I don't know that anyone would appreciate anybody attending their meetings and commenting from the crowd or the side and, or outside the room and that sort of thing. So I just would hold that up. I think it's just really important for people to remember there's a level of decorum. This is still a meeting that is taking place. And while I think it's wonderful when people attend and participate, I think there's just a certain level of behavior that should be observed at a meeting, whether you're the one speaking or the one in the audience.
Thank you, well said. I agree.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll tack on to that and say this, that, you know, in the end, it's more than a meeting. It's every individual in the community. We just said 10 minutes ago, you want your 3 minutes, come use your 3 minutes in front of us. But I'm sure you don't want people heckling you or tisking or any of that other stuff behind your back while you're speaking. So let's talk about the golden rule for a minute. That shouldn't just have to apply in a meeting. Just be respectful and dignified when other people are speaking. It's really that simple. And if you aren't, then we'll talk some more about the process for what we do about that.
Right, and this is not a requirement. School boards do not have to have public comment, so it's a privilege that we are providing because we think it's important. Yeah.
So back to the signage real quick. Is that like a city council meeting or other community public meetings? Are they not allowed to have signage or have a person hold a sign?
I don't know.
Not sure about that.
Because I don't know, I guess from where I sit, I'm not against a person holding up a sign as long as if I'm sitting in front of Jana, I'm not blocking her ability to be able to see what's going on. And as long as it's not vulgar, I guess. But, I mean, if a person's gonna get creative, they'll just put it on their t-shirt then. But I guess I don't know if I'm necessarily against that. As long as it's respectful. Not a hill I'm gonna die on either, though.
Yeah.
But
it seems like the time when I remember it happening, it seemed to maybe rile up the crowd more. And again, it's a meeting, it's a board meeting where we're doing business. It's not a place where you're.
It's not a rally.
Thank you, that's the word I was looking for. It's not a rally. So. I didn't really appreciate having all those signs out there when it happened, but, I mean, they're here to speak and they can say what they want during their public comment, but I would not die on that hill either, so.
I think the piece about it being appropriate is important, and then that's the only problem is if we allow it, who gets to decide whether or not it's appropriate?
Yeah.
Right, that's true.
I agree. And so to Charles's point, I would perhaps extend the guideline to cover attire.
So holding up a sign.
But are we, well, we got to go one way or the other. Either it's consistent or we let the First Amendment fly. You know, it's take your pick. I mean, because you can make that argument. You know, it's like having an election sign in your yard and all of that kind of stuff. I don't really know what to do with that. But if we limit signs, like Charles said, how do you not limit a shirt?
Signs are more, you hold them up and you can't see me, Charles, but they're more movable, or a shirt is just, I don't know. I don't know if we could limit.
Okay, I mean, I can be argued with on it. I was just bringing up the point.
I don't know how we could not allow them to wear a shirt that they wanted to wear.
Well, I do agree with Jana that it's a good point. Like, we also don't want to get into splitting hairs of Bob thinks something's inappropriate, I think it's fine, and that's going to take away from what we're trying to do as a board. So it might just be easier just to not allow it.
Not allow it. Okay. Just leave it as is.
Mm-hmm.
Are we okay with that? Maybe not.
I say less is more, so
Less is more in terms of out there or in here? Okay.
I think
the more you
banners
put
and
down
signs.
what we're going to do, the more you got to regulate it.
Should we leave it for now? If it becomes a problem, we can take it out. I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, that's true. As long as we have flexibility to pivot if we need or adjust.
Are you okay with that, Jana?
Striking it for now?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, striking it for now. And
I don't know. To me, there's a line that's crossed with props, and I'm not picking on the folks that rolled the names up the aisle, but to me, then you've created possibly a tripping hazard for somebody who's coming up here and having to walk across that paper and that sort of thing. I'm truly not picking on that, but it's one example. I mean, I saw people did trip over it that night, and Eventually, someone just had to roll it up and get it out of the way. I mean, again, this is a meeting. Would you bring signs and scrolls and pom-poms or whatever, you know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, to a meeting, you know? So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ruth, I thought you were saying that we would just keep it as is on here, meaning that it's taken out, so I'm fine with that.
To me, it's more about the distraction of it. That's why I guess I'm not trying to stop anyone from their message. If they want to wear a t-shirt with their message or a face mask with their message, and it's inappropriate for, I think there are kids here tonight, there are kids watching from home. I would hope we would say appropriate things and wear appropriate things in a public meeting. But I think for me, the line is drawn at props, I would call it. Anything extraneous that you're bringing in with you, signs, whatever, you know? Anything that's not on your person.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it props, because like the person that had the oxygen monitor thing, that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so, okay, we'll leave it as is then. We're gonna leave it in the policy
for anyone to trip over or
is
raise
what
it
I'm
up.
now hearing.
Yeah.
To leave the holding of signs or displaying banners. Again, I kind of think it's a good thing, because I don't want this to become a rally.
Sure.
But I'm not wedded to it either, so. Director Nystrom, are you okay with leaving it in?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Director Hagelin?
Terrific.
Okay.
As he's wearing his Warriors mask and Warrior shirt.
Okay, and I think the last is good on that, and violations.
Well, I think before I say anything to the actual violations, is one thing that we need to keep in mind is that we, as a board, well, let me word it this way, you all as a board are respected and honored in one speak. But even more importantly, what I think of when I read this portion was, my children watch this. And I want them to be a part of this process, because this is the amazing part of our country, is that opportunity for individuals to share their input, whether I like hearing it or not, or whether it fits in my little paradigm. But it's crucial that individuals like my children are not being taught opposite of what is respectful or honoring to anyone in their speech. So I think, or I challenge us to be looking through that lens as well, not just the respect or the honoring of the board, but also those young impressionable eyes and ears. I don't want this to be a meeting that I need to shield my kids from seeing, because people are getting off the hook because they're frustrated. I get frustration. I do. But we need to be adults.
Well said.
Thank you, Charles. The only one that that maybe I'm not in agreement with is the violations, the second bullet point that we would, the third one, that we could end the public period. I like the using a recess. I think that if we have a major disruption, we should use a recess, and that person should cease to be speaking to us. But I guess I don't believe that everyone else should be cut off from being able to speak to us when we come back from recess. I don't know that I would be supportive of ending the public comment because of a disruption.
I would agree with that. So we cross off that third one and just say this.
Well, if others agree, I mean, that's stuck out
Well,
to me.
I agree until I don't agree. And what I mean by that is, I think that's fine as our go forward for the moment, until there's some sort of organized effort to circumvent that with let's call it a chain disruption in an organized fashion. And then at that point, we'd have to address that. But let's not create problems until we have problems.
So we'll
it
just
feels
leave
to
it,
me
the
like a
school
lot of this.
board chair will call a recess.
Yes. That's my opinion.
And do we need to order the room to be cleared, or, I mean, if we do a recess, we will leave. Does the whole room need to be cleared? Yeah, and it says that on here. So it's just the person that is not following the rules.
A lot of it depends on the circumstances happening.
Right.
Yeah. Well, until order is restored is maybe a better way to put that.
Yeah.
Well, we want to make sure that we're accessible to individuals. If there's a person that's struggling to get up and out of their seat and we go into recess 4 times, we keep making them leave the room.
I think it'd be, if we felt the need that a separation needed to happen, I think we could leave the room and not require everyone else to leave.
Right.
I would hope it
So
wouldn't
just
have to
until
come to
order is
that.
restored.
but-
Order, I wrote those words in.
Okay.
I'm taking this.
The school board may ask this, and then there's the superintendent response after public comment. Okay. I'm fine with that.
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be nice to obviously see it again.
Yeah, so we will see it at the next meeting, and we can discuss it again.
And this will be because I'm sure for people listening or even sitting here, they're not seeing what we're seeing, they'll have access to the updated.
Correct, and then the question is, from what I hear, your direction is to embed this in policy 206. To expand.
No, I think Ruth's point was to refer in policy 206 to these guidelines.
It'll be easier to make slight modifications if we need to, quickly. Okay.
I think it would help too, like I'm trying to, but I don't want to skim it right now. I think maybe we could all just take some time before the next meeting to review the policy that's in here and figure out how the two work together. You know, it helps for me to think of
There's some overlap to what's identified as.
Yep, so I think it would just be good to review that in conjunction with reviewing the edits.
Okay. So, yeah, at the next meeting will come, we can review the policy, review these, and we'll see how they fit together. Any other comments?
I mean, no, I would just say it makes sense to me. I mean, my main points, because I don't see the document you guys see, I'll read it as well when I get it. But 1, maintain order. 2, make sure everybody who wants their voice heard gets their voice heard. And 3, to have a process and ramifications for how we deal with people that refuse to follow those other 2 rules.
Yep, sounds good summary, Director Boyles. Any other? Okay, so we'll see this again at our next meeting. Okay, now we're on to approval of the minutes from the special school board meeting on August 25th.
So moved.
Second.
That was Director Nystrom and Director Sjogren. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent calendar. Hirings are approved. Oh, anyway, we have the consent calendar and you've all read through it. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Blacklands.
Second.
Thank you, Director Nystrom. Discussion.
So I'd like to just highlight a couple of our donations. We had a significant donations we'd like to recognize CTC. CTC donated a chest freezer with, as well as over 300 food items and 35 pounds of meat to the food pantry located at our Brainerd Learning Center. So that was a significant donation that we want to recognize. We're very grateful. That's a very needed service. We have that in multiple schools, but we really thank you to CTC for enhancing what we have at the Brainerd Learning Center. And we also just, Lakes Area Presbyterian Church did some school supply donations for us as well, which has also come quite in handy at the beginning of the school year. So we're very grateful for those.
Yes. Thank you to those community institutions. Any other? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same side. Motion carries. Next up, we have the COVID-19 back to school informational update. It's Assistant Superintendent Hahn is very busy tonight. She gets to change places.
Thank you for letting me get up and move. Appreciate that. We just have a brief update for you tonight. Thank you to Ms. Bennett for joining us.
Sorry, it's multitasking.
That's good. So here we are, 1 week of school done. So 5 days done. This is just a review of the goals that we set. This was, and this will continue to be the goals that we go back to. The safety of our students and staff is our first priority, and the next priority is in-person learning 5 days a week, full school days. We're trying to align all of our recommendations with the agencies that we have partnered with. We're going to continue to tweak and update our matrix and decision-making plan, which is one of the things we'll cover. And then again, having timely and clear communication if there's any changes that happen. So overview of tonight's presentation, we're just going to give you the current guidelines. I do have a question about masking that I can help answer for you. We do have a revision that we'd like to recommend for that decision-making matrix. Again, discussing, we've had questions of how are we using our data, why that data, so we can review that. We'll give you the current county data and most up-to-date data that we received from Michelle Moritz, our public health supervisor. And then Angie will cover some of our current district data that's aligning to that decision-making process. So again, these are the guidelines that we've had in place. One of the things I took a lot of phone calls, and the biggest thing that's happened with this exemptions is quarantining. So if you remember last year, anytime there was a positive case, we had to take out the whole elementary classroom, or we had to create a bullseye around, or it would be about 1/3 of the school bus. By having face coverings on at this point, when there's a positive case, we do not have to quarantine when face coverings are in place. So that's a big shift, and parents appreciated that clarification and communication, and it's been really nice the first week of school. We have positive cases, and we have not had to quarantine a classroom. So I have appreciated not calling parents at 9 o'clock at night. The safe learning plan, some of the questions of why that's gone away, we covered that at the last meeting. This is the matrix that was used for the learning model. That's again the template or the texture that we used or the background we used to create. This was the matrix that was put in place using that cases per 10,000. One of the parents did ask a question tonight about why that grade level difference, and the difference in there is specific to individuals and the age that they can be vaccinated. One of the questions was why doesn't it expand to 7th and 8th? Part of that is we have all the students contained in one building, the middle school. So it could be looked at, could you do the 7th and 8th or 12 older and plus and break those apart? That can be further discussion, but that's why that original recommendation was made, knowing that they're all housed within that building and they do cross. We do have some classes that mix, but we do have them contained by pods. So there are decisions when we go to our building matrix. This is the current data from Crow Wing County provided by Michelle Moritz. So when we met at the last meeting, we were sitting at about 35.2, so that's that gray box. So right now we're at 46 cases per 10,000. One of the people asked, why are we going back to this? This is actually what our local physicians are asking Crow Wing County Public Health to do. This has been the data they're more comfortable with compared to the 7-day trend. So as you've received emails and questions about 7-day trends and percent positive increases, that's some of the difference you're seeing as people are trying to interpret or give different emails or questions. But this is the data that's put together, so we're gonna have the next data is gonna be coming out shortly, hopefully by the end of the week. One of the things that we're starting to see, and we did not get the cases per September, but in June we saw 6 cases, 18 and younger. In July we had 17 cases, 18 and younger. In August we had 83 cases, 18 and younger. So then again, that was the public health concern, as we haven't hit September and school isn't opening, and we're seeing an increase in our younger individuals. That's our current county data. And again, this seems to be more when you're looking at our local health professionals in the area, they are asking public health to have that data relayed to them this way as well. One of the things we'd really like to look at is creating more of a matrix that's building specific. So again, one of the things that was concerning is when we opened the school year and we're bringing almost 8,000 people together into spots, is we really didn't have that data to go with. We only had county data and the direction coming to us from a county. The other thing to remember is Brainerd Public Schools is a county seat. So county data is more relevant to Brainerd Public Schools than it might be to Pequot or to Crosby, just because all the action's happening more close to where we're at. But we try to give recommendations of, let's say we see that and we can start to shift things back, then how will we make decisions? And we really can look at that localized data. So what we're trying to look at is how do we determine when we might need to change? So let's say we see it drop and we're willing to go back to strongly recommend face coverings. When would be a chance where you'd uptick it? Well, by the time school's in session, what we have now is we do have data specific to buildings. So this is a recommendation of when might we want to look at something different. So really, when we're looking at 0 to 1 cases in the groups less than 30, we can stay pretty at minimal concern, 1 to 2 cases. But when you start to see 3 or more, same thing, public health starts to get concerned, is there something going on? And that's when then we can look at, is there a different recommendation that needs to be made? So this is where we try to create that graphic or that decision-making process specific to local building grade level classroom. That's something we'd like to recommend for your consideration that we can use as a decision-making matrix going forward. Current data?
So you'll recall from in the summer months, we kind of use the whole summer span. When there's less students in the building, less staff in the building. This now has switched from kind of the cumulative, which we've also provided, but also what's currently impacting the district. So currently for staff, we have 4 absences due to symptoms, awaiting test results, or have a positive case in the household. The positive cases are not included in this number. We do have 2 active positive cases that are out. And then we did go ahead and add in the cumulative data just so you could kind of get an idea of where we're at. It stayed pretty low. So since August 16th, which a lot of our staff, more of our staff started coming back, and until current today, we've had 7 positive staff, 6 quarantines, which is good because you're not seeing the close contacts. Students, 35 absences due to symptoms currently, awaiting test results, or have a positive case in the household. The majority of these, I would say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, are a lot of positive cases in the household. So we're really drilling down to what does that look like? You know, are they able to isolate? Is it little kids versus middle school versus high school? Are they staying in a basement? You know, how does that impact their quarantine period? If you remember from last year, it was an automatic 14 days from last contact, which could actually be 24 days. That's a really long time. Before it was kind of mandated that we had to use that per the decision tree. It's not anymore. So we're really trying to figure out what's the best way to ensure our kids are getting the education they need while still protecting, you know, other kids in the district. So we're still gathering data about that. We've had some different scenarios where the positive case moved and lived with a relative. And so then those people went down to a shortened quarantine. It was a one-time contact, so they could actually get back on day 7 versus going that whole 24 days. More to come, and I think as we get to the next board meeting where we're really gonna drill into the school-based data, because we've had more time, we can kind of give a recommendation on what that potentially could look like. We have had 16 positive cases active, and a lot of these, I would say probably at least half were positive, like right as school started. So it wasn't even like they were in school and then they caught it from somebody. There was a lot of it just right out the gate. There was a report that, hey, I'm positive, and then we had to react to that. Cumulative data for students, we've had more, obviously, than staff. 28 positives total since August 16th, 42 quarantines. That data is probably, I do put 8/16 because that's when we really started tracking students coming into the building, but really more than likely it's closer to right before school started. Because that's when parents were really reaching out that they had stuff going on in their household.
Angie, I would never want to ask you guys to track something else because I know you're tracking a lot. Thank you. But one of the things I'm curious about when I see already, 6 staff quarantines, that's still significant. That's disruptive to a classroom. I mean, any sense of how many quarantines have been prevented because of masks, like we're saying? Do we know how many more quarantines we might have had to have?
I can't really articulate that. I think, the staff, the guidelines are different than students. So mask to mask within 3 feet does not apply to the adults.
Yep. Or student quarantines, for example,
Right.
when you say we haven't had to take out an entire classroom yet.
Yeah, I would say it helps tremendously in the student side. So when they are at school, perhaps they're symptomatic, then, they feel sick, they go home, get tested. We don't have to, we kind of take a look at the environment, make sure it's not a high needs room where nobody's masked, we take those things into consideration. But right now, we don't have to quarantine any of those people.
Yeah.
And so I would say that has saved a lot of quarantines. We haven't tracked specifically how much it could have been versus.
Yeah, I know, and I wouldn't ask you to, but I just think that's something I just put out there because I think it's important to know that, and you probably know off the top of your head, have we had a positive yet that by last year's standards would have potentially quarantined
yeah.
an entire classroom.
Yeah,
So
we
I just
have
think
that.
that's an important point to make about
And I think
one
where
of
we're
the
gonna,
positives of.
where you're gonna start to see some uptick is activities. You know, you're gonna start to see some surrounding districts where teams are being canceled out because of multiple cases, kind of, they've reached a threshold in their teams where there's enough positives on the team, they're all out. So, and again, that's, you know, the infectious period is 2 to 14 days. So that's the other thing, and the caution of, and I think one of the reasons the termination was to wait for a couple of weeks was, let's see what's gonna happen when you put 8,000 people together. You know, and our surrounding districts are watching us very closely, and we're also paying attention to our surrounding districts just to see. But you're starting to see different things play out. Right now, where it seems to be playing out more is in activities, not in Brainerd, but in our surrounding districts, you're gonna start to see, and in some of our competitive districts. But that's some of the, I mean, in high exertion activities, students don't have face coverings either, so you're putting yourself in a little bit more high-risk situation there.
But I would say for each student that tested positive that was on site, it was a minimum of 7 quarantines. I mean, and some were as high as 20.
Yeah.
And if it was on a bus, it was.
A third of the bus, depending on the.
Right, so if they rode the bus and were on site, it was wiping out all sorts of people and staff. And, you know, so we do still have that vaccination exemption, and some students even last year, you know, kind of said, I'm vaccinated, and they don't have to quarantine as well. And we do have a lot of that occurring on the staff side because we have a good chunk of our staff that is vaccinated, so that's always a conversation that is had, that if you are vaccinated, you can be exempted from any close contacts. So there were some close contacts in some of our positives, but since they were vaccinated, they did not have to quarantine. They were just advised to monitor for symptoms and then act accordingly.
So, question, so this is only 5 days of data, so it's.
For student side, right.
Yeah. If, you know, if we were a month into it or whatever, if this was our current, I mean, it is our current reality as of 9/13, but we've only had everybody together for a week. But if that was the data, how would that play into the previous slide or two?
It would be considered low. Yep, so when you go back, it would be considered minimum to low. When, again, where it plays out where those positives are. So we're looking within a grouping of less than 30 students. So right now, these are pretty spattered. And by creating something like this and using localized data, it allows you to respond building by building or classroom by classroom. Again, when we opened up school, we didn't know. So it's gathering that data. But I know who the kids are and where they're at, and Angie knows where the staff are at. This would fall into that minimum to low.
Yeah.
So is it potentially your intent then to use, you know, perhaps at the next board meeting 2 weeks from now, to use that data against this graph then? And then that's how a decision would be made, or?
Well, we'll present kind of where we're sitting. So like if we look at our decision matrix, it kind of has different areas all over the place, you know, with masking, or face coverings, I should say, this, really wanting to get into that localized. So we have it tracked by building already. So the way our COVID tracker is, it's automatically presenting per building. So what we'll do is with those active cases, create the building snapshot. So where's the high school? Is it in this area? You know, and maybe the face coverings could be by building too. If one was high, one was low, you know, we could start walking down that direction and make it different per site if we wanted to, and kind of decide how we want to go.
So this is one of the things, so that, I think to answer your question, Director Hagelin, we started to look at, again, applying that from county level, then to our local, and then to getting more specific or group level, and trying to put some things in there. So learning model. So let's say we're looking at that high section, as people have asked, they keep hearing distance learning. Distance learning isn't the option. We are an online, we did get our online application approved today. Thank you, Mr. Murtha. But what it's really allowing us to do, let's say it's a classroom where we started to see a larger group of students testing positive, that would be a high. So then do you need to look at, again, like we said, that online option for them to basically give them that reset and that quarantine time? You know, where otherwise if you start to see it increase, or can they maintain in person? It's really starting to make some of those decisions by what we're seeing, because we are not seeing the classroom transmission at this point, but part of that we have face coverings on. So this is again,
a few days.
Yep, we've only been here 5 days. So, and then we look at, this isn't a touchscreen, but then You know, a lot of questions right now about breakfast and lunch. So when we are low, just keeping our regular routines. Right now though, we're starting to see some people are starting to stagger those meal times. They're spreading kids out more. I'm really hoping we have a mild fall. Lots of people are going outside. But if it gets to a higher point where we consider putting meals back in classrooms. You know, those are things that we can control to continue. Again, it's layering as many mitigation factors as we can to keep the risk minimal for our students.
So we'll talk about this more when we have more data in 2
Yep.
weeks.
But that was one of the requests, was to try to create a building level, so this is what we did in that. And then I have received, like, one of the questions I'm receiving a lot about is face coverings and the science of face coverings. And I've had lots of great discussions with community members, had a wonderful conversation with an epidemiologist on Friday afternoon. And there's research studies on both sides, right? But the biggest thing, face coverings do not prevent COVID, we know that. The biggest thing they do is they slow transmission. So again, the decisions of starting a school, 8,000 people. It's Texas Tech University Health Services. They're the ones who have the most up-to-date research, confirmed with CDC and the Department of Health here. They also are doing research on the Delta variant, which we know is much more contagious. But what they find by wearing a face covering is it decreases the spread or decreases transmission by 75%. So the whole intent of the face covering is to slow. So when people have asked why, that is the science behind having a face covering, is to try to slow that transmission. That's just one of studies, and again, that's been
Where was that study from?
Texas Tech University Health Services Center. And it just, what question you want?
And one more question, not related to the mask, but to the to COVID. And with the recent federal mandates by President Biden with employers of 100 or more staff members, does that apply to public schools then as well?
It's not signed yet.
Right, no, I realize it, but what's being
Yeah.
floated out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
It will apply to public schools. Is what we're reading.
And have any, I'm sure you already have a plan laid out on how we'll address that.
Yeah.
We've already started looking at, different options if that were to come down the pipeline, because there is testing options.
Yep, that's a
already.
clarification too, is that if there's either vaccination or
Weekly testing.
is kind of what he's
Yep.
put in his guidance. And it's going through states that have OSHA requirements, which Minnesota is one of those states.
Yep.
I guess I'm probably more concerned about the potential, struggle of finding, retaining our staff and then finding replacements with a mandate like that.
Yep. And that crossed my head right away. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
man. But, it's something, when it's a federal mandate, we don't have an option not to follow it. So we will do our best to meet all the terms of the mandate. We do have testing protocols already that we've used last school year. There's lots of discussion in regard to student testing. That's not an area right now that we are offering, but are continuing to look into it for families that might be interested in that. And there is some grant funding available if we were to get some testing coordinator position. If we
And
were
for
able to fill
supplies and
that.
materials,
Supplies, yep. So we still have the vault, and we do plan on initiating that for staff who choose to test. Not gonna be a mandated thing at this point unless the executive order is signed. We're already started digging into it a little bit, but nothing is official at this point.
I think that's another point of clarification. We have a lot of things we could clarify, but when you bring up testing for students, I've been fielding a lot of emails about that, and we can say we will not be testing students.
No,
we're not even testing students at all right now, is what I just heard you say, and we wouldn't ever test a child without their parents' permission.
Without parents' permission, right, we would have to have consent to the parents.
Yeah.
It'd be voluntary, and the two options we've looked at are having test kits available. So if a parent has to pick up a child from school and they're sick, they would have an option to take a test with them. That's one of the options we're exploring. The other thing that's becoming available and a lot of parents are asking for is rapid testing as our employees. Like if I'm showing symptoms, is there access to a rapid test? We're exploring those pieces. This information is still fairly new. The other thing is being able to get those materials. So rapid testing, you really have to get a different waiver and certification for. What we found out is even if we could get through those things, that wouldn't even be available probably till mid or end of October to our staff. But we have had families ask, like, And we actually have had some staff ask again, because we had voluntary testing for staff all last year. They would like to start to have that move forward as well.
I would maybe caution though, I mean, you know, the federal government is going to require vaccination or mandatory testing, weekly testing by all staff, right? So who knows what they might come out with in a month or two as well, as far as even students. Because this mandate, I think, caught a lot of people off guard that, of what's coming down the pipeline.
One thing we've gotten used to is the change every day.
Mhm.
And so we've gotten very used to just pivoting and relooking at what we have to do and presenting it to you guys as quickly as we can to get guidance. We have already had the practice with the staff piece, so I don't think that would be as difficult to implement except for the staffing model, like who's going to be in charge of that. You know, we have school nurses, obviously, who have been tremendous, but we need to be
awesome.
cognizant about the workload there too. And then who's gonna coordinate it all and, you know, tracking all the vaccination records and all that good stuff. So we're just kind of going with the flow at this point, kind of looking at stuff and preparing if it does come to pass.
But we receive questions, and that's why our response has been, we're still learning. And as we know more, we'll let them know more.
Yeah, well, thank you for all your hard work on another layer of work added on to your job duties for who knows how long. So, thank you.
Yeah, that's hopefully not too long.
It was supposed to be over by now. Just
I know.
I'm pretty sure somebody here.
It was a nice June, wasn't it? It was a nice June. Okay, thank you very much. Now we'll go on to tonight. We only have one for action item item for action under new business. And it's approval of the first reading of the updated MSBA policy 808.
And here I am again. Thank you.
Angie.
So, you know, this is being brought forward to the board for revision as it was kind of held static during the rest of last year because we weren't really sure, you know, what's going to happen here. So we kind of kept it in place. It had all the executive order language as it was referenced that is now outdated. And so really the main changes are in relation to that. So it removed kind of all the governor's executive order verbiage throughout the policy and realigned it with the 21-22 COVID-19 response plan and decision-making matrix. I did include, you know, in addition to that, so as we evolve through the decision-making matrix throughout the school year, but it also allows for a provision if there's a directive by the school board or district administration to pivot. If you remember from last school board, if we're able to remove the face coverings sooner than the next board meeting, we were allowed to have that discretion so we could alert students and families that the face covering was no longer required. So that's why I wanted to include that language. So if we were to go backwards and able to remove those face coverings, that would allow us to do that. And then on the flip side, if we come to a board meeting, the directive changes at the board level, that this policy will also encompass that. Other than that, not a whole lot changed. I did remove the language in regard to distance learning as that's no longer covered by statute. And then there was a final paragraph, I believe, in the policy where there were reports to law enforcement because it was an executive order that no longer applies. So obviously we would not be reporting to law enforcement. And that's about it.
Do you have a motion to approve the first reading?
So moved.
Thank you, Director Nystrom. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Sjogren. Discussion?
I did have a few questions just for clarity purposes on 3A. I was just curious, it says should not be overly tight or restrictive, and I was wondering what we mean by restrictive.
Well, I think the point of the policy is this should not be something that is uncomfortable and painful to a student or a staff member. Otherwise, an alternative face covering would be offered, so like a face shield. Throughout this entire pandemic, we've never enforced that everybody had to wear a cloth face mask. It is a face covering. There's several different options. So if somebody was having difficulty breathing or felt lightheaded or having a hard time focusing, or whatever the reason is, we did not require medical certification for individuals to wear a face shield. So if they felt it was better for breathing purposes, or for teachers who are teaching, that they wanted the students to be able to see their facial expressions, speech, special ed, all of those different areas, we've never kicked back about wearing a face shield. So I think it's more about the comfort, that it shouldn't be something that is, causing anyone pain or inability to do something, and that we had lots of different options.
Okay, and then under 4B2, it says a teacher of any grade level may wear a face shield when wearing a face covering may impede the educational process.
Mm-hmm.
How will we know, or they know, if that's happening? Or is that just left up to the individual?
It's left up to the individual. So again, we had many staff members and students that where the facial expression is very important to the educational process, or seeing people's reactions. They have chose to wear the face shield so that they could have that face-to-face. We also have those available for students. So if that was a barrier for a student's learning, or any situation was occurring, we did not require any type of exemption for wearing a face covering as a shield.
Okay. And then the last question I had is on 4C2. It says when engaging in indoor physical activity where the level of exertion makes wearing a face covering difficult, so people participating in these activities should maintain 6 feet of distance to the extent possible. So I think this is for the Phy-Ed classes, and
And indoor practices, it is very, similar to what we presented last time, that if there's going to be physical exertion that is going to cause it difficult to wear a face covering, that it's okay that they're removed in those instances. And
I know later on too, there's another section in here like for band and choir, but it seems to me that if I'm in Phy-Ed and I'm playing basketball as an example, I'm going to be in very close contact, breathing, because I'm out of shape, breathing heavy, and it just seems like it would maybe counter the mask purpose, and I would be concerned about then later on we find out that there's cases because of that, and it just seems like I don't know, it just seems like, why would that be okay? Like it's okay in Phy-Ed to not wear a mask. It's okay to be in band or choir to not wear a mask.
Actually, in band and choir, they're still.
Pardon me?
In our band and choir, they're still having face coverings, and they have a lot of special mitigation strategies that went into place in band and choral. And when we're looking at Phy-Ed classes, things like that, a lot of our Phy-Ed instructors have altered activities to try to make sure they're picking activities where students are more spread apart. But it's the same things that are happening in sports practices, so this is where we put ourselves at higher risk. So when we do have that positive case and we're looking at quarantining, if it's a positive, we ask, what was the schedule, where was the kid at? We have had to go back and talk to Phy-Ed instructors to say, what was the activity that day? Who does Tom normally participate, or who is he hanging out with? So then we have that notification of that positive exposure. But that is one of the things that we had that in place last year as well. Really looking at what the activity was.
It seems like we're putting that of a higher priority.
And last year in elementary, we didn't have.
We didn't.
Phy-Ed or music.
Or music.
So really a lot of the mitigation strategies we implemented were at the secondary level. Right now, most of our Phy-Ed instructors are trying to do everything they can outside. So having the kids outside and having a break from having a face covering.
Okay, and that just one other thing, and I don't know, along with the data, and I don't know if it was appropriate here or during your COVID presentation, but is there a way that we can get some other data that is specific to the counseling sessions, the mental health issues that are there? Can we get that updated every 2 weeks like we are with the case count?
Sure. And what are you looking for specifically? Like how many visits?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but something that would try to help track with that. And I'd also, although you can't get the same impact, every couple of weeks, but it should be nice to know from an educational standpoint, because I don't remember the last time we really talked about curriculum and how our kids are really doing, but is there any way that we could get some data on that as well? You know, good, bad, or indifferent, so we know, you know, we know how our students are performing. I don't intend at all to get into debate on the use of a mask or whether it's safe or not. There's certainly some mitigation with it, but there's also some downside with it as well, and we're not, you know, we're not seeing that or talking about that part of it, and I just think that that's critically important.
Yep, we can ask maybe the group from the guidance counselors who presented last spring and get some data from the high school.
We have Northern Pines in
Northern
every building
Pines.
as well.
Yep. To see if there's been.
And I think in the near
on that.
future, we'll have MCA results too.
We do have MCA results, so that will be presented as well.
But even to get more of our own real data on you know, classes, the first tests that were taken last year, how are the grades compared to this year, as an example, something that's more readily available.
Or how many fails, I know someone brought
Yeah,
up.
or just, you know, what kind of, something of more real-time data versus, well, this is what happened a year ago.
Yeah, we can see what data we can pull.
Actually, a lot of that data, if you look at the continuous improvement retreat that took place and the plans were established by all of our buildings, they looked at that data and had some really interesting data, especially at the elementary, all the way broken down to letter ID, word recognition, and can kind of give that comparison over time. So all that data is compiled.
Yeah, the every 2 weeks might be.
It's a little challenging to give.
Challenging.
Yep.
We can see.
But if we could have a meeting in the future on some of that stuff, it could even be a work session or something like that might be good. So, yeah, I would like to see some data too. That would be great.
Any other questions about the first reading? I think we had a first and a second, but
we do. So if there is no more discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
You're opposed? Okay, so it's approved 4-1.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we have an informational report on business services with Marcy Lloyd.
So as you know, we started school, so the enrollment report is as of today. Sue was able to clean up some data and compared to budget. So the first column is student count ending the year last year, and that's head count. The second column is the preliminary budget, which is ADMs. So if we have a student that comes in, stays the whole year, that is 1 ADM. If they leave half the year, it's 0.5 ADM. So I just want to note that because when we look at the next column, the student count, we have 6,109. So if all the students stayed all year, we'd have that for an ADM, and we'd be over budget by approximately that 108, which would be awesome. I did do some historical looking. So in the last 3 years, we averaged about 1.5% decline from the start of school till the end of school. So if we did that, we'd be ending at about 6,017, which would be up 16, kindergarten through 12. So again, that's good news if we stick with the historical trend. I also wanted to give you guys a little update, CARES, with the CARES funds. I'm gonna do a summary at the next board meeting, a detailed summary. I'm trying to close out last year's and then also get in applications for this year's. There's a numerous funds that are coming through that are found out. There's COVID-19 testing funds at a business manager meeting last week. That is about $353,000 for us. You could use it for the supplies, staff, So yeah, we're just finding all sorts of different avenues. Alyssa shared today that there's some additional food service funding for March to June of 2020. There was an email that was sent out. The governor set aside about 20 million in ARP funds, and he's going to increase the declining enrollment allocation from 28% to 48.5%. So all of these are positives. We just have to find a way to track and spend them correctly. Is there any questions on that?
I have a question, and I don't know if this is directed at you, Marcy, or more at maybe Heidi. You know, because a lot of people held their kindergartners last year, we have that weird distribution of kindergarten to first grade. What impact does that have on staffing and handling, you know, that extra little blimp, you know, where it goes? So our first grade is the lowest of anything, and then our kindergarten is basically the highest numbers.
Yeah, we are seeing an uptick in kindergarten. We also had a fair amount of parents who decided to hold kindergartens again this year.
Okay.
So we'll have to just monitor how that trend goes,
But it must cause, I mean, you must have to rotate teachers around some because of that.
So we've adjusted.
Okay.
Yeah, sections.
Okay, so
we did.
I just remember in the past there was a grade, I think it might have been your son's grade that was so big.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's, if you use kindergarten, you might see those kindergarten in the next incoming sections. You might see that teacher rotate then to a first grade section rather than a kindergarten section.
Well, and then we have to think long-term too, because when they get in middle school, how do we handle that? It's a lot more difficult there. And I remember that grade level, it always seemed like they had really large class sizes. I don't want that to happen to this kindergarten level.
Yeah, I noticed for 12th grade, am I reading this right, 561?
Yes. That is normally when we see that loss, we do see a lot more in the upper grades, so.
But that is interesting, because the
Yeah.
11th grade last year, that's only 506, right? Perfect. Nice.
That's really encouraging.
Yes. Good news.
Yes.
We'll take some.
Yeah.
And then the next meeting also too, just, we will have the levy presentation. So we'll get a preliminary levy amount set, prove that, tax notices go out, and then we have the actual hearing in December where there's public comment and final approval.
Any other questions for Marcy? Okay, hearing none, thank you. Okay, our future meetings are listed here. I don't think I'll go through those, but unless anyone has any questions. And now we need to move into a closed meeting. So do I have a motion? Thank you. Thank you, Director Nystrom and Director Blacklands for the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will.
Just, I'm all for it, but just, it's for labor negotiations.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, for 13D, state statute section 13D03 for labor negotiation strategy. Thank you very much. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And